Don't you ever want to do anything exciting? Like what? I want a real adventure. Real adventure. We can go anywhere we want in the whole galaxy. That was amazing! Yeah.
You can see grand adventures even in a rotten galaxy like this.
We are not pirates.
Keep your blaster ready. Oh, we're pirates.
Yeah.
This is the Rebel Force Radio Skeleton Crew After Show.
Let's go!
All right. Back for more Skeleton Crew here on the Rebel Force Radio Skeleton Crew After Show. It's a single helping this week here, the second week, but the third episode of the series. And man, what's with these episode titles? My goodness. Very interesting as an Astrogation Problem. You know how many times I had to type that today preparing for the after show? A lot. And every time I still had to look it up. I couldn't remember it. It didn't stick. Sometimes these episode titles tend to stick. This one certainly didn't, but I'll tell you what, the episode did. I had a great time watching this episode this week, and actually watched it twice, which it's rare for me. I know it's very common for a lot of folks, including the gentleman I'm going to introduce here in a moment, to watch it a couple of times, but it's rare for me. But did catch it more than once because I kept getting the sense that there was more to this than the very first viewing led me to think. Then I spent some time with the transcript, and yeah, there's all kinds of stuff to talk about. We've got some character development here. We've got new characters. We've got some Easter eggs that are going to be really fun to talk about. Who are the standout performances? Who are we really drawn to now that we're 3 episodes in? Who do you look forward to seeing each and every week? And of course, we'll do lots of speculation as we do with your phone calls and so much more. So if you're new to the program, and introductions may be in order, my name is Jason. And with me, as always, my good friend and yours from Chicago, Jimmy Mack.
Hey, Jason. Hey, Star Wars fans. Chut, and high ground to y'all. Swank and myself here at RFR, we're firmly entrenched in our Skeleton Crew era. And we're slaying. We are absolutely slaying in our Skeleton Crew era. It's very exciting. So, hey, the episode titles, man, I'm with you. What's up with the weirdness with these episode titles? They're very bizarre, but our good friend Sonny from New Orleans checked in with me via email today. Come on, Sonny.
Wait a minute. That's a name I've not heard in a long time.
I don't know what Sonny's deal is because his preferred method of communicating with us was via the voicemail hotline. And we hadn't heard from him for a while, but he wrote me today and says, I know you haven't heard from me in a long time. I'm still here and listening. Okay, well, that's all we needed to know. Thank you, Sonny. But he says something caught his attention when he was looking at the title for this episode, the third episode of Skeleton Crew. What's the title again? It's
very interesting, as an astrogation problem. Astrogation. I still am not convinced that I spelled that word right.
Astrogation problem. Okay, well, Sonny from New Orleans.
You're right, Gation. There's a typo on this sheet I'm looking at. Yeah, you're right. It's astrogation.
Astrogation. Mm-hmm. Sonny from New Orleans says one of his favorite all-time movies is Joe versus the Volcano. It's a Tom Hanks movie, I think, from like the 90s.
Rom-com with Meg Ryan. Mm-hmm.
And he likes that movie a lot. And he immediately made a connection between a line from that film and the title of this episode of Skeleton Crew. He says that one of the lines from the film, which, by the way, is an Amblin film. He says it's a quotable line from a minor character, this luggage salesman, who says to Joe, who's played by Tom Hanks, he says, Tom Hanks is talking about somewhere he's traveling, and the luggage salesman says, "Very exciting," as a luggage problem. And so Sonny believes there's a connection between that line from the film and the title of this episode. Very interesting.
That is interesting.
Problem. Well, I mean, I can kind of see where there might be some sort of it's an odd title. I'll just leave it at that.
Title. Now I'm wondering, are the titles themselves Easter eggs from these, Amblin 80s, early 90s films?
Okay, that's interesting. Maybe they all can be tracked back to a certain line of dialogue from some Ramblin' Amblin film. Random Amblin film.
Ramblin' Amblin.
Ramblin'. I said Ramblin' Amblin. I did say that, didn't I?
You did.
I had to say Random Amblin. Hey, that ain't easy to say, friends. That ain't easy to say. I know many of you are sitting in your cars right now probably saying that. Random Amblin film. Yeah. Try it.
Let's get to the tail of the tape here on this particular episode. We are talking about episode 3 here, season 1, about 33 minutes long, sans final credits. The title, one more time, very interesting, as an astrogation problem. This episode was directed by David Lowery. If that name sounds familiar, he's worked on other Disney properties, such as the Pete's Dragon remake in 2016, as well as the Peter Pan and Wendy film from last year in 2023. And the episode was written by the showrunners, the creators, Christopher Ford and John Watts. So there you go, season 1, episode 3. Very interesting as an astrogation problem, and that is a line in not just in Joe versus the Volcano, but it's a line in the episode too. We hear Kh'ymm say that, and so we'll get to all of that here in a matter of due course. But pretty simple episode, Jim. I mean, some the major beats are: we got a breakout of the brig, we've got the rescue of SM-33, we meet Kh'ymm. Kh'ymm is able to, we think, we don't know, we think is able to provide a map, or the coordinates at least, to At Attin. We'll find out maybe in the next episode. And of course, there's an interesting escape from Kh'ymm's moon there. And there's buttons at the top in the end of the episode. Talk real quick about the button at the beginning. We finally get to see what's going on with the parents. When we left Wim's dad, Wendell, and he was frantically talking to one of the safety droids, saying, there's a ship and my kid's on the ship and blah, blah, blah. And so now we see all the parents there, including Numa, which is Neil's mom. And I didn't get names on the other two. I don't have a name for Fern's mom or for KB's. I'm assuming her two moms. I don't know. Some were saying maybe it's the mom and a sister. I think it's two moms there. KB's.
I think it's two moms because she says the names are Gari and Mani.
Oh, okay.
And Gari is the one who speaks up, and she says, our daughter has very urgent medical needs.
Yeah.
So she says our daughter, so I'm assuming it's the two of them. And that gives you a little background on KB as to why she has those cybernetics. It's probably some sort of way of maintaining her health or keeping her alive. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Well, there's a line before that too, Jim, where they talk about KB's life monitor.
Yes.
We don't hear that about the other kids, so I don't think life monitors are necessarily in every kid. I don't think it's like a chip, like you chip your dog. It's if the case they escape. So yeah, the life monitors. So yeah, very interesting about KB that she may have some issues that could crop up.
On the Ewok TV films from the 80s. The kids wore life monitors as bracelets on their wrist, because I
That's
remember that was a big
right.
deal. Where they were,
Yeah, okay.
that's how they knew the kids were still alive and everything.
Yeah.
So,
Oh,
mhm,
do you remember?
yeah.
Well, you were a little older than me, but, man, that was a big deal when you saw that light go out on that bracelet. That was
That was
I
very
tell you what, you
dramatic.
guys know 80s kids, I'm telling you, 80s kids, we suffered some trauma back in the day,
Yeah,
from the
well,
Alf
there
Christmas special all the way to the Ewok adventure and the light going out on the bracelet. When you look at the way kids, and I throw myself into this category, and you try to shield your kids, these days. We weren't shielded back then.
no,
But
we weren't, not at all.
so that could be, you're right, Jim. That could be, maybe I'm reading too much into that there's a life monitor. I kind of interpreted it as it was something that was there because of KB's, potential issues that she has, health issues, concerns, something like that.
I
But
thought it was the elephant people who said that, it was Neil's life monitor. I thought that's who was bringing that up,
no, the
but
line
maybe.
was, what worries me is that we lost the signal to KB's life monitor.
Oh,
Yeah.
KB. Okay. So I guess, from what I understand from the, descriptive audio track that was, that I had turned on during my second viewing of this meeting at the beginning is happening at Fern's house. So that's where Fern and her mom
Oh, this is
live. I
okay.
don't.
This was Fern's house.
We saw it once briefly when Fern came home and her mom was kind of pressuring her, about good grades and stuff, and praising her for having top grades and whatever. And she went upstairs, I think, on like
Yeah, like a
one of
spiral
those
staircase or something.
spiral staircase,
Yeah.
exactly. And you see Wendell sitting there. And I got an email here sent to show at rebelforceradio.com from Woody Wood. No, he's no Pecker. He's just Woody Wood. And he's from St. Pete, Florida. And he is a big fan of the actor who plays Wendell, a guy named
Oh.
Tunde Adebimpe. Tunde Adebimpe. He's also in that movie Twisters, but Woody likes him because Tunde is the lead singer of the band TV on the Radio, which is, I got to admit, it's not a band I'm familiar with.
Huh.
They've been around for a long time. Woody suggested I look at a video of them on Late Night with David Letterman. So
Wow.
they've been around for a while because
Sure.
David hasn't been on the air in several years now. And I checked out the video. They're okay, and he's the lead singer of the band. And it's Wendell. I mean, he's got the glasses and everything. So I just wanted to point out that
Yeah, that's cool.
that the Wendell actor is he rocks. Literally, he rocks. So
Wendell rocks.
if you want to see him in action, check out the band TV on the Radio and their David Letterman appearance. I mean, it has 2.3 million views, as Woody points out to me. So yeah, they're a band of some reputation. So I'm surprised they never came across my radar, but me, I'm classic rock and blues pretty much all the way, jam bands, whatever. So I never got the TV on the Radio, but they're not bad. Yeah.
So these security droids, I'm getting a real sort of creep factor about this At Attin. There was a X-Files episode once where Scully and Mulder were investigating this suburban neighborhood, and everything was just pristine. Every blade of grass was cut perfectly, and then there were all these rules about where you could go, where you couldn't go, and at what time. And the whole thing was sort of a spoof of just suburban America. But I'm getting the same kind of weird vibe here with At Attin. Everything seems too perfect, too clean, and there's a line that the security droid gives. He says, because they're trying to reach the kids, he says, because the starship is outside the barrier, the supervisor, which we find out is Farah, is unable to risk any contact. So I'm thinking, well, if they only contact those inside the barrier, Who else is that other than people on At Attin? Because I don't think there are any other systems, planets, or anything outside of the barrier. It seems like once you get outside the atmosphere of the planet, there's the barrier, and that's it. So they have no contact with
Well, if you
anyone.
want to jump ahead to what Kh'ymm was saying later in the episode, she says, according to legend, of course, At Attin is among a group of planets that were purposely hidden from the rest of the galaxy. The planets were all destroyed, and the lone planet remaining, according to myth, is At Attin. And the kids, it's so interesting, all of these little tidbits about this planet that get revealed to us. But the people of At Attin still believe the Republic exists.
Yeah.
You know, not the High Republic or the New Republic, the Republic, the key thing. And they have no knowledge of the Empire and the Civil War and the eventual defeat of the Empire. They have no knowledge of any of that stuff. And that's made crystal clear when they're talking to Kh'ymm. And she's talking about the jewels of the old Republic, which are these planets. 9 planets of wonder kept hidden for their own protection, all destroyed except for one. And KB reveals that the kids learned about Alderaan and Coruscant in school. And Kh'ymm says, "Oh, missed the war, did you?"
Yeah.
And he's like, "What war?" Because if they were cut off, the Republic as it stood prior to the rise of the Empire was all peaceful for thousands and thousands of years. There was no war. Now the High Republic is kind of, spun that around a little bit and created some conflicts that, but really, I mean, hardcore old school Star Wars knowledge says that, I mean, out of the words of Obi-Wan Kenobi himself in the novelization by George Lucas for the original film, he said it was peace for 1,000 generations.
Right.
That's not 1,000 years. That's 1,000 generations. So we're talking like what? How long is a generation? 20 years, 30 years?
I think a generation is, something like 15 to 20 years, I believe.
Right. So times that by 1,000, and that's how many years you get. So yeah, that's a long time.
Well, speaking of generations in time, I want to go back to something you said about where At Attin is, where they are, not in the timeline in the sense of we know where the action of this show takes place in the timeline, but this particular planet seems to be lost in time or stuck in time. Yeah. And you said not High Republic, and I'm questioning that because this map that we're looking at here on the video, this is an ancient map. These are ancient, or I'm getting the impression from Kh'ymm that these are ancient stories. Now, time in Star Wars is a very interesting thing because, how many years pass between Revenge of the Sith and A New Hope? What, 30 years, something like that? 20 years about.
Yeah.
Roughly 20 years. And in that period of time, the Jedi are all but forgotten. They're kind of myth and legend. Didn't take very long, right? But I still get the sense from this, in the way that Kh'ymm is talking, is that this is really old. This is hundreds of years old. So I think that At Attin and the culture of At Attin could have its roots in maybe even sort of the final days of the High Republic, sort of like in that Acolyte era where maybe we're about 100 years away from the prequel era. So I do think that At Attin is stuck hundreds of years, perhaps, or at least 100 years behind the rest of the proper galaxy far, far away.
Yeah. I'd like to think longer, though, because I believe its location would be known to people if it was only 100 years ago.
I'm saying at least 100. Because you were saying that it wasn't during the High Republic era, that it was after the High Republic era.
Well, they don't refer to the High Republic. They refer to the Republic.
Don't. Right.
So I'm taking this on face value. I'm sorry, but I am. And if they said High Republic, then maybe High Republic is just the way historians look back at a certain period of time.
Yeah, maybe
in
it's
the
like,
future.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't call it
But-
World War II during World War II. You know, that was a name that historians applied to it afterwards. So it could be that.
That's right. So it's interesting. There is a thing in the High Republic novels about the chancellor of the time named Lena So, and she had initiated sort of it was like a series of great works. Okay. One of them
great
was
work.
one of them was a space station called Starlight Beacon, which turned out to be it ended up getting destroyed in combat. Like right after, like when it opened, like they were having their grand opening ceremony, and these marauders raided it. Man, you know, that's crazy. Like you know, the drones flying around on the East Coast nowadays. How do they not know what those drones are? It's like, how do you let Starlight Beacon get attacked during its grand opening? Come on, step it up.
Oh, they know. They know.
Oh, they know. They know. You brought up Mulder and Scully earlier, and I think we should put in a call to those guys.
Yeah, maybe they're looking into
at
this.
The East Coast Drones. The East
Or-
Coast Drones. Hey, that's not a bad band name. The East Coast Drones.
Yeah,
Somebody take.
It's always great when you see, you know, your military on television going, yeah, we'd have no idea what these things are.
Yeah,
We-
we didn't. Yeah,
no
we
clue.
didn't want to look closer at this because we were nervous. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Ooh. That's kicking the gut. But
So
hey, back to the show.
Back to the show. Let's talk a little bit about Jude Law Nawood and what we've learned about this guy. Man, he really does. He really keeps me guessing. We talk about face value, Jim. I have to take this as face value where Jude Law himself, the actor, has said that his character, you know, when he's asked on talk shows, is he a Jedi? You know, he hedges, but he says he's a Force user. He's Force sensitive. He uses those terms.
Yeah.
And the only thing I can think of here is that here's a guy that, you know, despite the kids having this riff about all the different ways you could make things levitate and float, I think he is using the Force ability. I think in the scene where he made the noise down the hallway, very reminiscent of Ben Kenobi in A New Hope, and floating the keys and some of the other things that he's done, I think he's using the Force. My theory about Jude, though, is that he's literally using the Force, meaning using it to fit his own ends. And so he's not progressing spiritually. He's not growing as a person. He's able to channel the Force, use the Force, but he doesn't have much luck. You know, obviously this is a guy that's, you know, kind of gone from one scheme to the next. He's got multiple aliases, but yet he's Force sensitive. I'm now coming around to thinking that he's not trained necessarily in the Jedi arts. Knows some Jedi history, but I think he's a poser. I think he has some raw abilities, but he's using it, and therefore the Force is not giving back to him. So I think we're going to find that his abilities are pretty rudimentary and pretty basic. That's my guess.
Right, like he doesn't have the ability to look ahead into the future or heal someone's wounds, or you know, he knows some of the like the Jedi 101, the Force 101 stuff.
I don't even think he can do the mind trick. We haven't seen him do that, and he's had need for it in places.
True. And I mean, if he could pull off the mind trick, how did he get himself thrown into that cell to begin with?
Yeah.
Wouldn't he have incorporated it then? But yeah, he's definitely a mysterious figure. The one thing I fear is if he's using the Force for his own means, he's most likely tapping into the dark side of the Force. And the dark side of the Force has there's a feedback effect you get from using it where it does things to you, like it disfigures you along the way, and it kills the people you care about and love and things like that. So having him in such close proximity to these kids and potentially tapping into the dark side of the Force is bad news, no matter how you look at it. The way that Kh'ymm reacted to him showing up by calling in, I assume she was calling into the New Republic to have the X-Wings come and fly in. I'm pretty convinced that that X-Wing pilots, those 2 X-Wing pilots, were dispatched by the New Republic. I think some people were speculating, hey, maybe that's just they're just X-Wings, and it's like
No, I think they're old Republic. I think I was expecting it to be Filoni and Blue. From Mando, to be honest, like they're the only ones, but I assume they're from that same type of crew.
No, they're it's a guy named Kent. He's an X-Wing commander.
Kent, of course.
You saw that coming from a mile away, didn't you?
I wonder what happened to him.
Who's Kent? Who knows? But that according to the credits, that was the guy's name.
Because at first I played back the voice when it was coming over the comms, because I thought it was Favreau. I thought, oh, is that a Favreau cameo? But it wasn't. It sounded a little bit like him. But okay, so it's Kent, and he's actually credited on the credits. But yeah, I mean, it's they're of the same ilk. They're New Republic officers that are on patrol. They're like the police. And they're looking for this guy. By the way, I got to ask, I know you're a big fan of the classic Star Wars comics. When you heard Crimson Jack, did that ring bells?
Instantly.
Instantly.
Well, you have to understand who Crimson Jack is. He's really the first antagonist of the entire expanded universe. He really, really is.
Can you school us a little bit on Crimson Jack? I had no idea who the guy was.
All right, so after the 6-issue adaptation of the original Star Wars film by Marvel, it just broke all the records as far as comic book sales go. Marvel's like, hey, we got to continue the Star Wars story going here. So with permission from Lucasfilm, Marvel started to conjure up all of these stories that wouldn't shake up the continuity too badly. So starting with issue number 7 of the original Marvel Star Wars comic run back in the 70s, I'll never forget the headline. It said, beyond the movie, beyond the galaxy, or something like that. It was like, ooh, that sounds good. That sounds good. And they focused in on Han and Chewie. The comic book began post-Battle of Yavin. Luke is back in his shorty robe, and Han and Chewie are shaking Luke and Leia's hands and bidding farewell to the droids, and they're getting on board their ship to go on a new adventure. Well, actually, they're going back to pay Jabba. So they have this reward in the cargo hold of the Millennium Falcon, and they want to go and pay back the money they owe to Jabba. So they take off, and right after they split from Yavin, they come across a Star Destroyer, and the Star Destroyer is the home ship of Crimson Jack. Okay. And Crimson Jack is this ginger. He's a Star Wars ginger, and he's got this very flamboyant looks, if you ask me. He is wearing a leather vest and leather underpants, and basically boots and nothing else.
Was he Freddie Mercury? What's going on?
It was the 70s, Swank, so keep in mind, the bands of the era like Kiss and stuff. He's basically Gene Simmons with underpants. So there he is, Crimson Jack.
Yeah.
And big, red beard, the pirate.
But dude, look at the face here. Even in this illustration, I mean,
I think Han would refer to him as Redbeard when they would have these encounters. So Crimson Jack and his gang, I always remember one of his gang was a stormtrooper, but it wasn't sure if it was assumed that it was a pirate who killed a stormtrooper and took his gear and his armor and helmet and everything. But it just looked kind of out of place with Crimson Jack in the game. And so they boarded the Millennium Falcon and held Han and Chewie at bay, and they took the reward that Han and Chewie won for destroying the Death Star. Crimson Jack took it.
Oh my God! So he's very attached to Star Wars history. There, he took their reward. Yeah. We saw Han and Chewie loading the reward up, in the movie.
So Crimson Jack and the gang took it. So he continued to be a thorn in Han and Chewie's side for a while. And then finally there was a showdown between Han and Crimson Jack, and Han planted a blaster bolt right in this guy's chest, and that was the end of good old Crimson Jack.
Oh, so he was killed off in the comic.
Yes.
Okay.
Now I think he's been brought back in novelizations, or just novels. I think he's been brought back in the current Star Wars canon. Maybe in the High Republic books or something. I don't know how they've reimagined the character, but to me, he'll always be the guy who jacked Han Solo and took his reward.
I love it.
Split. Yeah.
Do you think that they're going there, that they're going to link Jude Law's character with this guy? Or do you think that it was just a name that was tossed out for, Jimmy Mack and folks like you that grew up on those comics and went, oh yeah, Crimson Jack?
Yeah, I would probably, classify this as in the same category where you would put the holiday special hologram from episode 1.
Okay.
You just, it's kind of like a, if
right,
sort of thing. But with Crimson Jack being gradually reintroduced into new canon via novels, I don't recall if he's reappeared in the comic books. And they have brought back some characters from the Marvel comics. Jackson has appeared in the Dark Horse Star Wars Adventure line. And the bounty hunter cyborg Valance has come back, and he's had a big presence in new Star Wars comics. Bigger even than the presence he had in the original run back in the 70s.
Dominique is asking, is this possible that there's any relation to Crimson Dawn? Maybe Crimson Dawn got its name because of Crimson Jack. I don't know. Crimson's a pretty cool word. You had Crimson Guard in G.I. Joe. So, yeah, sort of that blood red, crimson.
Some people are pointing to a background character from The Force Awakens named the Crimson Corsair. And he was you can be spotted. He's a background character. He can be spotted at Maz's castle. And it was him. He's got like red armor with sort of horns protruding on the side. And it's this red armor. It's kind of a cool looking character, the Crimson Corsair. And he is notable for being the guy Finn went to. Remember when Finn wanted to break away from the group?
Yeah.
He wanted to find his ship to take him somewhere. And so he hooked up with these guys who, if he worked for them on their ship, they would grant him passage to wherever he wanted to go. And he was seen walking out of Maz's castle with the Crimson Corsair and his gang. But then all of a sudden there was a big hubbub about Starkiller Base launching the blaster bolts.
Yeah.
At the New Republic capitals. And so yeah. And then the Empire attacked. So that probably ruined everything. Maybe Crimson Corsair died in that attack. I don't know. It's probably been covered in novels or whatever.
Hey, speaking of Force Awakens, did anybody else catch this? I can't say for sure. I thought these looked like Kanji Club guys here in the one scene. This one dude back here, I'm telling you, enhance. I think, to me, he looks like Kanji Club. When I saw these guys coming, as they're making their escape out of the brig, all these guys walking around, and they had kind of the red, sort of the red scarves, and they, were all sort of kind of Asian heritage. It looked like at least the actors were. I don't know. I like to think, in my head canon, that's Kanji Club walking around there. on that planet. And speaking of planets, I don't think that we've gotten a lot of, outside of At Attin, we haven't gotten a lot of names of planets. I don't think we know the name of Kh'ymm's moon that she is on. I don't think we really know the name of the port, the pirate spaceport. We do have the space.
That's called Borga. We talked about this last week.
Okay.
Port Borga. As a matter of fact, if you buy the Brutus Black Series action figure, it says Brutus, parentheses, Port Borga. So we might be seeing some other
I was just gonna say
appearances of Wolfman Brutus.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some Bespin fatigues or something like that for old Brutus.
And they did refer to the moon that Kh'ymm's on. They didn't give it like a proper name, but when she was communicating with the X-Wing pilots, they were trying to contact her, remember, and Jod heard this, and that blew everything for Kh'ymm at that moment.
Right.
They were
over
saying,
the comms, we hear something?
Yeah, it was over the comms. They just say observatory moon, come in, something like that. Observatory moon. So that's the sector patrol of X-Wings, and they wanted to know what's going on at the observatory moon. So apparently she's there to sort of keep an eye on things and do astrology. Or no,
astronomy.
Astronomy. I meant astronomy. I didn't mean she's not like, telling fortunes or anything.
She's not
like
Miss
that.
Cleo over there.
Astrology. Yes. Come in, Kh'ymm. Come in, Kh'ymm. I need to contact Kh'ymm. Come in, Kh'ymm. I'm a Pisces. Please take my calm. Take my calm. I'm with a Leo and an Aries.
Let's talk a little bit about Kh'ymm. Cool character, interesting, new, totally a different model. There are moments, by the way, and those of you, this is a kind of, if you get it, you get it. And if you're actually from the UK, and this is a bad description, forgive me, all I've seen of a lot of the kind of kids' entertainment for the UK that was on the BBC, we get over here on PBS. But there is an aspect of this show that reminds me of something that I would have watched in the 80s or the 90s from the BBC coming over on PBS. There's and somehow it was this Kh'ymm character that made me feel that. It's interesting how this show is just tickling all these little memories that I had as growing up. There's something very BBC about this. And from the sets to just the design of Kh'ymm. But so Kh'ymm's in this, essentially this planetarium, and she's an expert on star maps and all of that. And she goes, has history with Jude Law Nawood. She knows him as Crimson Jack, as we were talking about earlier. And she seems a natural to figure out where these kids actually are from and how you would potentially get them back. The other character, Jim, that she reminded me of was like, and I know it's the little owl from, what was it, Clash of the Titans? Kind of reminded me of that too. Even though that was a robot, it was a droid owl, and this is this is like an owl cat. Look at this face on Kh'ymm. There's also some Maz Kanata vibes to Kh'ymm. I thought I was really picking that up. How did you feel when they revealed the character? Was it like a shock for you? Like, that's not what I was expecting at all. Because this was not a character design that was spoiled for me. I don't remember seeing anything in the trailer or any production photos or anything with this character.
It's funny. My buddy today goes to me, "Hey, what's up with all the aliens who are animals in Star Wars now?" And I said, "Well, dude, I think that aliens in Star Wars have largely been based on animals." He's like, "Oh yeah, like what?" He folded his arms and started staring me down, And I said, "Well, there's the famous character Walrus Man. Ring any bells?" And then I said, and the Wolfman pirate is right from the Mos Eisley Cantina. He's like the second or third alien we see when we walk into the cantina in A New Hope. And I said, there's even a man-sized grasshopper in the back, or praying mantis in the background of the cantina. I'm like, there's all kind of things in the cantina.
Admiral Akbar was a lobster.
It was a fish, lobster kind of
We
fish.
had this discussion, Jim, back in I think it was the Clone Wars, when there was a character that was based off a shark.
Oh, yeah.
And so we started talking about the anthropomorphization of animals in the Star Wars universe, because people were like, oh, this shark man is coming out of nowhere. And we were like, well, not really. There is a history of this stuff.
Wasn't it Riff Tansum, I think his name was.
Was that it?
Riff. Somebody's like, he's named after Biff from Back to the Future. Riff Tansum. I can't remember his name. I got all these books here, and they're just out of reach. One of them
guides. Yeah, just needs another arm.
And I still go to books too. I don't look up everything on the internet. I look up a lot of things on the internet, but I still use these damn books.
I love walking over to the bookshelf, pulling it off the shelf, and blowing the dust off it, opening it up. You know, there's something I like that.
Yeah, the research feels real.
Yeah,
and I enjoy that. But so this little owl creature is, believe it or not, this has been a creature that's been getting floated around Star Wars for a long time. So far back, even go back to the original film, Ralph McQuarrie did a sketch of a little owl person, presumably to be included in the Mos Eisley Cantina. And that was put on the shelf, as George would like to do. And then George pulled it back off the shelf for Clone Wars. And it was supposed to be included in an episode in the first couple of seasons. I can't remember which one, but it got cut from that. However, it did get identified. Its species became part of the Lucasfilm internal holocron, where all the information about Star Wars exists. And Leland Chi, our friend, looks over all of that. They determined that this species, this little owl, is called a Charalian.
Okay.
Yes.
This is sort of that owl, because it's like an owl and a cat combined. Charalian.
Yes. Now, I'm not sure if Kh'ymm necessarily falls under that. We have to wait for the Skeleton Crew Dictionary, which will be on that shelf. It will be on that shelf when it comes out. But this is a character concept that's been getting kicked around ever since the earliest days of Star Wars, to have a little owl creature. And also something about Kh'ymm I noticed. Is Kh'ymm a Lobot?
Kh'ymm is a Lobot, Jim. I've got some. I thought I got a shot of Kh'ymm from the back here.
Yeah.
But you can see on this, just on the front view, you can definitely see there the cybernetics, and that sort of is what I thought sort of created the affinity between Kh'ymm and KB.
There you go.
Is they sort of recognized that with in each other. And Kh'ymm says something really odd. I thought it was odd. Felt like it was right out of The Wizard of Oz, where she says to KB, essentially, if you need me, you can call me.
Right.
And you can call, she says, and if you ever need help, you can call me anytime. So it must be the Lobot headphones connects them all in some way.
They're on the same plan. So this is perfect. This is perfect. They can just reach out to each other, or KB just needs to click her heels together 3 times and say, "There's no like, you've always had the power to return to home."
Right, but
really,
you know what I mean about why that it reminded me of that, where it's like, well, you can call me anytime. It's like, I don't even know you, but so there has to be some sort of. She didn't even explain. She didn't even give her card, her phone number. So it has to be a connection through. I think these enhancements, these cybernetic enhancements. So they must have Lobot on speed dial too.
She tells KB to find the truth.
Yeah.
It's like, well, wait a second, little owl. If you know the truth, why don't you just tell me? We're wasting time here. But maybe Kh'ymm is curious to what the actual truth is. And she's been screwed over by Jude, aka Crimson Jack, so many times. It seems like that tension already exists between the two of them.
Oh, yeah.
Yet we don't really know what their background is, outside of Jude taking them there and letting them know that he doesn't trust her. She says she might turn us in, or what
stab us in the back. And the kids take it literally.
Yeah.
She's going to stab us?
And so he knows he's going into an already rough situation with the owl lady on this observatory moon.
Yeah.
But sure enough, he's right. She calls for the X-Wings before he even lands.
And I love that they call them goons. These are New Republic officers, and he's calling them goons to the point where one of the kids points and goes, "Look, it's the goons." So they're not exactly, they're not exactly goons. They are, official government police officers. They're on the good side, presumably.
So we got to find out what Jude did to earn his reputation outside of general pirating things,
Yeah.
There's something that he really did to screw this woman over. But he also believes she's the only one who can help them. And he is right about that. She does, in my opinion, she does determine the location of the kid's planet.
Agreed.
But she withholds that information because she knows she's onto something hot. And that's the only reason why she even entertained Jude in the first place, is because he is bringing her something really good. And she wanted to keep that information for herself.
She sounded too fast. I feel right?
Yeah. Right away.
Because of the markings.
Yeah. Okay. She says, I've never seen Palmerish numerals used in Proto-Republic artifacts.
Proto-Republic means pre.
Right.
Pre-Republic. Yes. So that's going way back.
So that might tell you that these kids have been cut off from the rest of the galaxy for more than 100 years.
Right.
I mean, it could be thousands of years.
Right.
Could be thousands of years. So she discovered where the planet is, but acted like she didn't because she wanted to keep that info to herself. But Jude got the last laugh because after they got into their little pushing and shoving and whatnot, he grabbed the punch card. I love how they have this like computer punch card that comes out. I mean, like all the most advanced computers you've ever seen all of a sudden are acting like computers from the 60s and 70s.
This was like right out of Star Trek, the original series. I thought, something that would come out of Spock's computer.
Dude, when I was in high school, we were doing tests on these punch cards where you'd have to punch them out. As a matter of fact, voting for president up until 20 years ago, it was punch cards. The famous hanging Chad that the entire, what was that, Gore and Bush number 2. The whole thing was like one county in Florida had these hanging Chads, and that determined the Chad is the punch. The little piece of cardboard that's left behind after the punch. If you don't punch it all the way, the Chad hangs. This was a huge education we got way back then. What was in the year 2000 or something, 1999?
Oh, yeah, 2000. I remember well. B. Fernandez does jump in here, and he is right. We've got the smartest audience anywhere. And reminds us that proto can also mean original, so it doesn't have to mean pre. It can mean original. So either way, whether it be pre-Republic or sort of original Republic, which I think he's right in this instance, that's what it means. That these are not, there's nothing reproduction about these. There's nothing vintage about these or vintage is the right word. The bottom line is that these are originals. It'd be like you finding an ancient Roman coin that is in mint condition. Like, impossible.
Does he know what Palmerish means?
Well, let's find out. Let's find out.
Does anyone know what Palmerish means? That one, right away I Googled the word and it does not exist. Nobody.
Well, I
has
was thinking Palmyra is that a part of the Star Wars universe? Is that part of the Star Wars lexicon? Palmyra, I don't know. I keep wanting to tie this in, to something else, and I need to stop doing that because I don't think it's going to. Rarely do these things ever tie in the way we think they're going to. Fernandez says no, he is not familiar with
That's because no one is.
Palmyra. So
the term never existed in Star Wars or elsewhere prior to Skeleton Crew Episode 3.
Right.
But Palmerish might be just a term that they used in the Old Republic to describe they have Arabush or Arabesh, however you say it.
Mm-hmm.
They have that in the Empire era and beyond. I guess they have it in I don't recall seeing them in the prequels, that specific alphabet, but it probably exists, right? I can't remember.
I think so.
I can't
I mean,
remember.
there are. Yeah, I don't know if there are people that are really good with the Arabesh, and they see any of it in the background of Star Wars, and they'll find it and they'll run it through and they'll decode it and stuff. And that's something that it kind of goes over my head, to be honest with you.
Of course it does, because you have a life, Swank. You got a life.
So Kh'ymm, there's a lot to Kh'ymm. One of the things that I thought of too with her is that she, if we kind of take this back to the Joseph Campbell idea, she's the little nymph, she's the wise wizard nymph, or the closest thing to it that is coming across our heroes on their journey. Owls have a history of being, and my wife, who works with animals, can tell you that the old adage of the wise old owl, well, that's an old wives' tale. Owls are not known for their brains. They're not very smart, to be honest with you. But through folklore and history and storytelling, owls have always been likened and become symbols of wisdom. And I think that's what we've got here with Kh'ymm. So yeah, Maz Kanata vibes, the wise old owl. I don't think this is the last we're going to see of Kh'ymm in Skeleton Crew. I think she's going to come back. By the way, you think we're going to see more Kh'ymm?
Well, I mean, she makes herself available to aid KB anytime,
Right.
So she definitely will be back.
Mhm.
KB will make that call, guaranteed. They're not going to foreshadow something like that, and then it's just not there. I mean,
well, I don't know, Jim. I mean, some of this stuff lately.
Hey, listen, this is a really well put together show.
It is. I agree.
Okay? These are major league filmmakers / storytellers working on this project. I understand your skepticism, Swank, because we've been there.
Right.
We've all been there for the last decade. We've been there. But there are diamonds in the rough. And I firmly believe Skeleton Crew is a very well put together show. And it appears that as far as the story is going, we're not getting strung along. We're not, being treated like fools. They're presenting us with facts in a rapid fire succession so far. Enough to at least satisfy me and fill my belly week after week with some factual information about this thing that we've started to devote all of our time to. At least it's paying off. The payoffs are there. How do you tell stories and not pay them off? Acolyte, Ahsoka, where's the payoff? Solo, a Star Wars story, where's the payoff? This show has it.
Agreed. By the way, before we leave the subject of Kh'ymm, just a little shout out. The actress that provided the voice, alias Showcat, if that sounds familiar. She's maybe from the great show Arrested Development, great comedy. She's also currently starring in The Old Man, which a lot of people really like that show. And then there was Search Party, which was like 4 or 5 seasons on Max. But definitely very well known for the character of Maybe on Arrested Development. So playing the Lupita Nyong'o type role, nothing on camera, but contributing to this character of Kh'ymm. Some Easter eggs, Jim, that we saw here on the show. Probably some of the biggest ones were when Jod goes to rescue SM-33, and we see a lot of droids, a lot of familiar droids, including a battle droid, and then this guy right here, straight off of the Jawa Sandcrawler. This, as a little kid, this droid always freaked me out. It always looked very deranged, kind of crazy. That big smile. It looked like it always had a big smile.
It's a CZ protocol droid, Swank. And yeah, it could be seen on the Jawa Sandcrawler. And it is creepy. And we also see it on the streets of Mos Eisley after Luke and Ben sell the land speeder. Right. You see it on the side. And in that shot, it's at CZ is actually played by Anthony Daniels. But this particular CZD2 9000, probably the most annoying voice I've ever heard come out of a Star Wars droid. It's like, I am CZD2 9000. And they right away he shuts it off. But go back and watch that and listen closely. It's like, was that a temp track that they just forgot to overdub once it was there? Because it really seems very beneath the standards of Star Wars sound design.
A little unfinished, a little first draft.
Yeah, I mean, whatever. It says a couple of words. Who cares?
Right.
I care. Just like Luke Skywalker, I care. So we get CZ, and then you get the battle droid going, did we win? Apparently the kids aren't the only ones who are a little bit behind the times in Skeleton Crew. No, the Separatists lost, and they lost handsomely. So no battle droid.
There was a second droid that we see just from the back, and the only line that they have kind of made me laugh because it was looking for the prince. In this case, not the princess, which we're used to, hearing 3PO talk about, the princess. But this droid was looking for the prince. We never saw it from the front, so I don't know if that's a droid that we've seen before. But
I wonder if they're talking about Ken, the Jedi Prince, from the 90s kids novel Mission to Mount Yoda.
Well, could be. I mean, we got Crimson Jack. Though, yes. I certainly don't mean any offense to the classic Marvel run by comparing it to Mission to Mount Yoda. How dare I?
Right.
But, yeah. So this is a call-in show, by the way. Just a reminder, if you're listening, 708-866-1737, 708-866-1RFR. So we've got Tyler, our call screener. He is sitting there. Well, he was screening calls. Now we've reached a lull, so give us a call. 708-866-1737 if you're within the sound of our voices here as we stream the show live. Thanks, Tyler, for being here. Feeling better this week?
Much better.
Yeah,
Much
better. All right. Okay, man. So we do have some calls lined up, but before we get to those, a few other topics. Where the show sort of... in the same way that Kh'ymm found perhaps the way to At Attin a little too quickly, I can't believe that as we go into episode 4, we're just wrapped up episode 3, that the kids are already on their way home. So something's got to happen. The last thing we see here is the kids, the ship goes to hyperspace, and KB is the one. Now, this is where my suspicions started to arise. KB is the one that puts the punch card, the data tape, whatever it is, that has the coordinates to At Attin. She's the one that loads it up. Jod hits I believe Jod's the one that then throws it to hyperspace, and off they go. And then we see that little button at the end with Kh'ymm and the X-Wing pilot, Kent. But I have a hard time believing, Jim, that episode 4 is going to open up with them entering the Great Barrier.
No, they're not going to even be close. Or they're going to run into some sort of obstacle that will prevent them. It might be a situation where they say, look, there it is. It's the barrier, because they recognize it,
right?
Obviously. Look at all the swirly clouds. It's the barrier. And then all of a sudden, Brutus drops out of hyperspace with his gang and mayhem ensues. I could see that happening, where they get teased by the return home, and then they have to go somewhere else. maybe they make another jump into light speed. And
well,
they
here's
end
the
up who knows
question.
where.
Are
Yeah.
the coordinates that Kh'ymm gave that are on that tape, are they legit?
Yeah, are they accurate? Yeah.
Are they accurate? Are they legit? Is she, I mean, here, if you just take this all at face value, Jude is a pirate. He's a scoundrel. He's an opportunist. He's not in it for the kids, but he's going to use the kids because he wants to get the booty, wants to get the treasure that's on At Attin. And Kh'ymm is a scientist, someone who seems to have been around a long time. Heart seems to be in the right place for an owl. She wants what's best for the kids. Before she even meets the kids, you hear her talking over the comms about, oh, no, I hope he didn't kidnap these kids. And, oh, what's he doing with these kids here? So, and that's sort of an off-camera moment, at least in terms of, from the kids' perspective. So all at face value, Kh'ymm seems to be on the good side. She seems to see the kids as potentially victims or something that they need to be protected. And Jude is the bad guy. So why would Kh'ymm send them somewhere else other than to At Attin? Why would there be coordinates to somewhere else? Because she's got to know, Kh'ymm's got to know that she's their only hope in getting home. No one else is going to put together the clues to get to At Attin.
Well, again, I think it's all out of greed. She wants to keep the information for herself. So maybe she'll send Jude and the kids off somewhere on a wild goose chase looking for.
Oh, so you think she's just as corrupt or has...
Oh, yeah.
Okay, you think she's as corrupt as Jude. She's part of the underworld, the underground.
I think it's just her connection with those X-Wing pilots on patrol.
Yeah.
Make me question whether or not she actually has maybe a higher standing in the Republic, the new Republic, and she actually is someone who is, on the up and up. But I really think that she, at the very least, if she doesn't want to keep the information for herself, she doesn't trust Jude to do the right thing with that information.
Yes.
So she's withholding it from him for some reason. That is, of course, if the information on that data card is illegitimate. I mean, it might be the real deal. Like I said, they might get right by At Attin, and there might be something preventing them from crossing the barrier.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely enough to keep me guessing, and that's something that Star Wars does really well. I think it even though it's based in archetypes, even though it is traditionally been quite linear in the way it tells stories, we're so shell-shocked from the big reveal that happened in one movie all those years ago that it causes us as fans to this day, 40 some years later, to be jumping at shadows expecting some big twist. And when you look at the history of Star Wars, there aren't a lot of twists. But that's what makes it fun. That's what makes us come back every week or every 3 years or whenever the new content comes out. But in this case, Kh'ymm is a mystery to me because of what you point out. She seems all on the up and up and seems to have this relationship with the new government. But at the same time, what's she doing knowing a guy like Jude Law Nawood / Skeleton, or it's not Skeleton Jack, Crimson Jack.
Crimson, yeah.
Yeah.
Clearly a pirate. Clearly someone who is on the other side of law and order. And she doesn't seem that way. She doesn't. What's the connection? That's very interesting. I think if we knew what the connection was between Jude and Kh'ymm, we would understand a little bit more about both characters, but we don't know what that connection is.
Right.
And he's obviously a wanted man by the New Republic or whoever is patrolling that moon, whatever sector he's in. He's a wanted man. That part is clear. And now he's not only is he a wanted man on that moon, but Brutus issued a bounty on him and the kids. So there's bounty hunters who are going to be hunting them down.
Bounty hunters.
Yeah.
Class 1 bounty hunters, Jimmy Mac?
Now, see, I don't expect there's going to be any sort of like, oh my God, it's Bosk, something like that.
I was thinking Mando.
Okay. If Mando is indeed still bounty hunting.
Right. We don't know.
It seemed like at the end of episode 3, he was kind of retired. I mean, at the end of season 3 of The Mandalorian, he was kind of retired and I think he accepted a job in law enforcement on the planet Navarro.
Yeah.
So I don't think the Mandalorian is still a bounty hunter.
Taking contracts. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when Brutus said, "Yeah, I want to put a bounty on him. I want him, groveling at my feet," he told her Urkel that, and the first bounty hunter. That's where we've gotten to with the Disney Plus series. The first bounty hunter that crossed my mind was Mando, but it doesn't obviously have to be him. And I was like, well, he's shown up in other people's series before. Maybe he'll show up in this one. But,
it's hard to rule out any and all cameos. But from what I've heard from John Watts and Chris Ford, they've denied. They say, listen, I'm going to tell you right now, so you don't get your hopes up or you're constantly looking for it. There are no crossover cameos with other Star Wars stories.
Okay.
They have gone on the record saying that. But a lot of Star Wars executives and creatives have gone on the record saying things only to have it all blow up in their face.
Yeah.
So, but I really get, I have a sense of integrity coming off of these guys. I believe what they say. Watts and Ford. I watched who knows how many interviews with those guys. And a majority of those interviews are just, there's nothing there. It's all smoke and fluff. A few of them were pretty good though, and got into it with some of the creatives and actors from the show. So we'll probably have highlights of that later this week on the weekly RFR. Yeah.
There's some question on the chat about the timeline. When does this show take place? And this is, it has been confirmed, as far as I know, especially with characters like Vane showing up, that this is in the same timeline as Mando, Book of Boba Fett, Ahsoka. It's in that Filoni-Favreau time frame. So,
yeah, it actually occurring after The Mandalorian season 3.
Yes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. Well, let's, we got some super chats in here. Let's see what these are all about. Sal B. Crum says, was anyone else hoping for Maz Kanata instead of Owl Lady? For a quick moment, I thought we'd get it. No, I'm good with Owl Lady. I like Kh'ymm. It doesn't need to be Maz. Yeah, it doesn't need to be Maz. I don't need it to connect that much. I like a new character.
Really did not have any desire to see that little kumquat lady show up anywhere as far as Star Wars goes. She's really moved down the rankings, my personal Star Wars rankings over the years, into really the dungeon of Star Wars characters, as far as I'm concerned. She's really
there was
moved
just
down. So
much unfinished business with that. What she does for me, Jim, you bring up the mystery box a lot. She is the face to me of the mystery box. She is a mystery box, and so that's why I kind of resent her a little bit.
But I mean, what kind of character is she? She ran a cantina in The Force Awakens that had connections with the underworld, clearly. And then in the next film, she's a bounty hunter appearing on a hologram. And then in the next film, she's a fully fledged member of the Resistance. I mean, what the hell kind of trajectory is that for a character to go on? Really, really, a really, really bad character. So no, I was not hoping for Maz Kanata to show up in here just to further complicate things with that character.
Right. What is that going to help? Here's
Yeah, right.
N64 Rescue says, now this was the most fun I've had with Star Wars TV in a long time. A long time. I love RFR. Happy holidays, and thank you so much for the content. Well, thank you very much. I'm having a ball with this, too. I've been telling everybody that'll listen that this is something that you should tune into and have a good time with and sit around the TV with the family, with the friends, whatever you got, and check it out.
What about your family?
I haven't had a chance yet because the boy's been sick. Our schedules have been so weird. But I'm hoping this weekend I'll be able to get him to watch. What about you guys?
Yeah, same here. Michael has really shown a lot of interest in watching it. And Wendy wants to see it, but neither of them are making it a priority.
Yeah.
And with Dylan likes to watch everything on his own. He doesn't want he doesn't want any interruptions. He doesn't want anybody breathing or anything. He really likes to put himself in he likes to be in the isolation booth for his first screening. And then if he likes it enough and you're lucky enough, he will invite you to join him on the rewatch. But man, does he have some specific rules about that stuff.
Wow. It's like he's like the supervisor on At Attin.
He's very At Attin.
All these rules. Yeah, we just haven't had it was easier in those first couple of seasons of Mandalorian with the kids at that age to kind of, round them up, and they'd always want to be hanging with us in the evenings. Now they kind of go to their rooms. Yep. And they're on the phone with their friends, or they're gaming, so it's a little more difficult, but I'm definitely gonna give it a try.
Your kids talk on the phone?
Well, not on the phone.
That seems about as dated as being from At Attin,
Yeah, right. They're whatever it is, they're on whatever that app is that they communicate with. Discord. Yeah, my daughter's on Discord with her boyfriend, so they're on the Discord.
Really?
Yeah. Salacious.
Interesting. I wonder if you could hack that or anything.
Here's Dominique says, my biggest complaint with the show is that we're only getting 8 episodes. So glad we have the RFR after shows to double the fun. That's what you do. Yeah, that's right. That's sort of our role here. We kind of extend the joy of seeing new Star Wars every week. Yeah, 8 episodes. This could be one of those shows, Jim, where we get done with 8 episodes and we go, oh, it just wasn't enough. It just wasn't enough. We want more. Maybe this will be the case. I think back about Ahsoka, for example. I wasn't sitting there going, oh, damn, I need 1 more week. I need 2 more weeks. I was kind of like, all right, well, that wrapped up. But this might be the one. This might be the one that really leaves me wanting more, like in season 1 and season 2 of The Mandalorian, which, Mandalorian could, those first couple of seasons, that thing could have been a 22-episode season, and I'd have been thrilled. I'd have been totally happy with it.
Of course.
Some of the other shows, I was pretty like, I'm kind of ready for this one to wrap up.
With the amount of Star Wars shows, and, we're talking about watching with the family and stuff. Even Wendy brought up to me the concept of Star Wars fatigue and oversaturation. Do you think it would be wiser if they developed a 20 to 24 episode season of one show and just stuck with that for 5 years, as opposed to throwing like 8 different shows at us over the course of 5 years? Wouldn't it be wiser for them to commit to one great concept and just go for it? I mean, maybe nowadays the 20 episode season doesn't exist anymore. But a 12 episode season certainly does, and Star Wars is doing that with Andor. Why can't they take that approach with one single show and just fully commit to it, as opposed to having all of these different people working on islands at Disney/Lucasfilm, developing these vastly different projects that basically promote inconsistency in Star Wars story.
It's a great point.
More than anything else.
It's a great point.
Yeah. Why don't
The
they
licensors,
just commit?
the licensees would love it. Can you imagine if the licensees had a runway of a couple or 3 years, 4 years to really build out product and merchandise around a series? They're just grasping at whatever they can get out, and it's a struggle for them. And not that merchandise is everything, but it certainly fueled when we were kids. It certainly fueled our fandom and made us want more and more and more Star Wars. So yeah, it does seem a little scattershot. I agree with that. I would like to see more of a commitment.
Yeah, and more consistency. Other franchises do it that way. I mean, Lord of the Rings, they have one show going. What else is out there? Game of Thrones, they have the one main show, and now they're doing the House of Dragon. But it's not like they're throwing 3 vastly different Game of Thrones shows at audiences over the course of a year or two. They commit to the one show and throw all their resources behind it. All of and this is Lucasfilm. We're talking about a company that would sit stagnant for years and years waiting for George Lucas to come up with some idea about something. And they really never had anything else in the pipeline other than Star Wars and occasional George Lucas vanity projects like Red Tails or Willow, things of that.
Right.
And he would only do those, when there wasn't Star Wars in production. So there would always just be one thing in the pipeline. Now, all of a sudden, you're taking this company and you're having them work on a ton of different projects at the same time. I mean, there could be up to 20 different projects, maybe even more, in various states of pre-production or production at Lucasfilm right now. And this is a company that would go sometimes years without having anything in production.
Yeah.
So it makes you wonder why, and are they stretching themselves too thin?
Yeah, I think it's a great point, and I agree. I would much rather have the focused energy, the focused attention, and into essentially one story or one series, stretched out over a couple of years and meteor seasons.
Yeah.
I think you're right. I think the days of the 12 or 22 episode season are over, but like you say, with Andor and with other shows, 12, 14 episodes, it's not a lot to ask. And can we not go 3 years between seasons?
Well, that's just it. Their production pipeline moves at a snail's pace, and they need something else to fill up the void. Yeah. But really, in the last few years, how many different series have we had? Over the last 2 years, 4 or 5 different series.
Right.
So it just makes you wonder why not just pool all of your energy into one TV show that represents Star Wars, and then put all your other focus into bringing Star Wars back where it belongs, in the movie theaters.
Yes, let's do that. Let's go to the phones. Let's start with, how about we got Scott. Scott joining us. Hello, Scott. You're on with Rebel Force Radio.
Scott.
Hey, Scott.
Hey, how we doing, guys?
Hey, how are ya?
Doing real well, thank you. Thanks for taking my call.
Certainly.
So first of all, we'd like to say that we, the members of the Boston area Rebel Force fans, the BARF, are gathering virtually tonight. We had some inclement weather, but we want to invite you as honorary members of the BARF, to you, Jason, and Jimmy Mack.
The BARF. It's great.
And if you accept, and as we have membership packets that are actually in the mail, you should be receiving those in the next couple of days. So,
all right.
You'll have your genuine BARF bags. So look for those in the mail.
Awesome. Awesome. Boston area Rebel Force fans. The barf. I love it. I love you guys. Well, thank you very much, Scott. That's very sweet of you.
Well, you know, this is all because of you guys that I have my Boston fans. I get together and chat with the VIPs like Turtle Wars, Peter Beitzer, Eric from Phoenix, Joe Dallas, and Matt Rashid. A shout out to all of them. They're great. And it wouldn't have happened without you guys. So as always, I'm thankful for what Rebel Force Radio has given me. And thanks for hosting on another show. The after show.
Yeah, man. It's what we do.
Yeah, so
it's what we do. Well, tell us what's going on with this episode in the barf.
Yeah, well, it's Boston Dave here. Get to your theory, Scott.
So, yeah. So
Distinction among the ranks.
It's going to get us kicked off. But I'm loving the feel of this. I love that this is aimed for kids, and I think that's what Star Wars is. Star Wars should be for kids and the kid in you. So I love the vibe, and I wonder where it's going, but I'm okay just enjoying the ride on this one. So that's just where I'm at.
That's your theory?
I love it.
Your theory is that you're just going along for the ride?
Sorry. Well, sorry.
I do like what he's saying about appealing to the kid in you.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't, to me, the story and why I think it's so well done thus far is it doesn't feel like we're watching a kiddie adventure show. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like we're seeing it through the perspective of children. And I think that's a really interesting way to incorporate kids into the Star Wars universe, because it doesn't matter how old you are. If you get blasted into a pirate port with walking wolfmen and stuff, I mean, you'd be more freaked out than these kids are. They're actually keeping their cool in a very mature, grown-up way. I think if you put us mature grown-ups at that pirate port, we would be pooping on the floor and vomiting
Jim,
like that one pirate was.
I think you're absolutely right. I think it's playing out on the show. Look at how hysterical the parents are in the opening scene, and then you contrast that to what we're looking at here, Kh'ymm. Man, is there anyone happier in the world than Kh'ymm in that gun turret? I mean, he is he was built, he was made for this. He was born for this. I love that. And Fern is a little more reluctant, but certainly gets into it. But man, I'm really loving, I like all the kids. They're all very likable, but Kh'ymm is definitely my favorite just because he's just so game. And he's not, moaning around about being homesick. This is what he was made to do. And I think he knows it.
And his character represents a true contrast.
May I interject for a second?
No, I got to finish what I'm going to say
first.
So,
this is Boston Dave, but
it's always Boston Dave interrupting. You were interrupting last week too, and I'm going to say what I said last week. Enough. I got to say what I even forgot what I was going to say. I had something so profound, Boston Dave, and you stepped all over me once again. 2 weeks in a row. 2 weeks in a row. Well, we will accept your membership kit when it arrives.
Here, let me unmute Dave for we'll unmute Dave for his apology.
Oh, okay, I'm bad.
Every time, David. Every time. You did this on some other after show too, if I remember correctly. It's like the Ahsoka one or something.
This is correct.
We got to get Dave house trained for this kind of stuff.
I guess. My apologies. Hey, my theory real quick is I wonder if all of the money on At Attin, this treasure, I wonder if that is the, if we go back to Clone Wars, the Rush Clovis arc, where they went and all the money was out of the vault. You guys remember that one?
Sounding a little bit familiar, but okay. So
Okay. Anyway, wondering if that money that was disappeared from all the Muon vaults is now on At Attin, and there's a connection there.
See, here's the thing, though, Dave. The problem with that theory is that everything that sets up At Attin, we believe is hundreds of years before any of this. So there's nothing from the Clone Wars that set this up. There's nothing from Rebels that set this up. This was all set up, I believe. I think Mac agrees, hundreds and hundreds of years prior to anything that we've seen.
Yeah, when the owl says you missed the war, the kid goes, "What war?" So obviously he wouldn't have any knowledge of the Clone Wars either.
Cool. All
Yeah.
right. No, thanks.
All right, guys. Hey, thanks for the hang. Oh, wait a minute. We got someone else?
Yeah, this is Boston Dan.
Hey,
actually.
Boston Dan.
I have a theory as well.
Throw your theory out.
All right, so like my theory is that, you know, since you said this was something that was like hundreds of years ago, or maybe even like 1,000 years ago, that this could be a Sith planet that they took over one of the planets and used it for, you know, eventual financing for like the First Order and the Sith army that we see in the Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah,
And
I think
kind of
that's
like-
interesting because
kind of
the planet where Palpatine was with all those Sith acolytes, Exegol, that was also hidden behind this anomaly, this space anomaly, not necessarily nebula gases, but it was kind of like nebula gases. I don't know. So that's why I kind of drew that connection before.
You know, the great work, just I said it last week, it just sounds ominous. It sounds cultish. It sounds kind of creepy. So I don't think that it's all on the up and up. So I can't say whether there's a Sith connection, but definitely something, something not good, I think, is at the heart of all this.
You know, yeah, exactly. And, you know, and I'm pretty sure that we've spoken about this, and I'm trying to remember if we did last week, but talking about the peacekeepers they're definitely going to be having a negative effect towards the end of the series. They're going to be somehow the guardians of, you know, the treasure, and they have an ulterior motive that is going to be revealed actually probably pretty soon.
Yeah, I think that they might be almost like a droid army. I think they're there just to keep luckily everyone pretty much toes the line, and it seems like it's been a pretty peaceful place. Everyone's sort of fat and happy, and doing their work. Now, the other thing that's revealed too, as we're talking about this, is that they're all analysts. All the parents are analysts, and it has something to do with, it's revealed by the kids, with money. So there's something that, you know, at the heart of this planet, their economy, we might say, is just money. Is money, is a treasury, is something. Right. And Wendell sort of has this kind of this weight on his shoulders. There's this sort of sense of responsibility or something. So it's whatever's happening there is starting to crack, and obviously these kids finding their way off world and then presumably back is going to be perhaps the fatal blow to whatever they've got going on there. It's going to be the end of it.
I agree with you, Jason.
Like a shady banking plan.
Maybe. I think they're gonna find their way back, and they're gonna actually have to confront the system that's been keeping them closed off and in the dark for however many decades or centuries. I firmly believe that.
Yeah. All right, Barf, we got to let you go. Thanks, guys. It's always good catching up with you. Appreciate it.
Look forward.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. All right, let's go with we've got Brian.
Wait a second. I want to finish my thought.
Did you remember?
Boston Dan shut me off. Well, yeah, I mean, I did.
Good.
I was just presenting the idea of the contrast between a kid like Kh'ymm, who grows up on this planet that It's just, his day-to-day existence he considers to be mundane and boring. So he gets out there in the galaxy and learns his planet actually is a jewel of the old republic. And, a planet of wonder and riches and treasure. But he doesn't see it that way. It's the mundane existence of his day-to-day life that pushes him to go out and explore and do so with such enthusiasm. He wants the adventure. He's like Luke Skywalker to a degree.
Yes.
Get off the farm and go out to adventure. But I think he's more like Leia, as we saw her in the Kenobi show. She had everything. I mean, she was filthy rich, royalty, anything she wanted was at her fingertips. Did she spend time in the palace? No, she sought for fun and adventure out in the forest, running around with her droid, staring at starships and thinking about where they've been and where they're going. And she had a bigger desire to go beyond her pampered lifestyle, but she doesn't see it as pampered because it's the only life she knows.
Yeah.
But she knows there's something else out there other than having her hand held for everything, getting anything she wants. She wants challenge. She wants adventure. And this kid Kh'ymm is just like little Leia. He is from this planet that's considered to be, this planet of wonder and riches. But I also look at his planet, At Attin, standing in for like the life that a lot of we live in America. We live in the suburbs or in the city. And I mean, we have a roof over our head. We have the ability to buy meals and families and live in a life of freedom and stuff. We might be taking that for granted, compared to other areas in the world where people don't have that at their fingertips. I kind of feel like that sort of lifestyle is the lifestyle on At Attin that Kh'ymm is representative of. He's representative of the people who live in modern society, who have the modern society conveniences at their fingertips and the things that matter, like food and shelter. And those are things that we often take for granted, I think. And the show, I think, is shining a spotlight on that.
I think the show also is showing us a what if, an alternate universe. What if the Empire hadn't taken over? What if Palpatine hadn't risen? What if? And so we're seeing what the Star Wars universe would have likely looked like.
Yes, the non-corrupted existence.
Yeah,
of people living in the galaxy who weren't under the thumb of the Empire. And I'm really curious to find out all these mysteries, to have them get solved and learn why. Why are they sheltered? What is this? What's fueling all of this? What's the great work? Those are good mysteries. They're not gimmicky mysteries. They're proper mysteries.
They're not getting in the way of enjoying anything. That's the key. But let's talk to Brian from Virginia. Hey, Brian, thanks for hanging on.
Brian.
Hey, guys, no problem. First time, long time, fellas. Also, was B. Fernandez on the thing from earlier.
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Excellent. Well, good to have you on
checked up on my old ancient Greek, and it was first and beginning. So that was right.
Okay.
Just to make sure I wasn't wrong earlier.
Great.
But no, the reason I was calling this time was I was wondering if you guys had gotten into talking about the two pieces of art we saw. That, like, although it's not a Filoni show, they both looked very Filoni-like. There was a mural at Fern's house, and then the scroll, obviously, which is the other piece.
Okay, I'm going to look and see if I can find. All right, I didn't get a shot of the mural, but I can definitely I can show you the scroll that they roll out there at Kh'ymm's.
The Facebook group's gotten into the mural. The picture's up on there already. I will say that it seems to be the same sort of five beings holding up a sun. The mural, though, at Fern's house looks like straight out of some Filoni art. So I'm kind of curious who did that one.
It does have that, So here's the picture of. holding up a planet or a sun. It looks like there's robed figures here that are surrounding this individual. I mean, I'm with you. I was definitely getting Filoni vibes. This looked like, some kind of Mortis, ancient Star Wars depiction. I'm not saying it's Mortis, don't get me wrong, but very similar look.
No, yeah.
Very similar look. And then the 9, yeah.
I noticed because on the mural at Ferns, which has a little more detail, the person on the far right, which people have been it's an Athorian to some people see a snout, but I definitely see an Athorian. The person in the mural is definitely Athorian. Then there's one of those elephant people, so maybe the person on the far left here is one of those elephant people because we can't really see his face, he just got big eyes. And then the 3 remaining humanoids, those are just humans it seems, and those are the same 5 people on the mural holding up a sun. And it seems to have something to do with the great work. And the reason I was going to ask Jimmy, because you're the only person who knows, who founded the Republic? Do we know who the original 5 planets are? Because all this seems to go back to the founding, the proto-beginnings of the Republic.
Well, they always talk about the core worlds. So you have to assume that the Republic grew out of the center of the galaxy. And the core worlds consist of planets like Coruscant and Alderaan, and a few others. But who founded it?
That's why I'm starting to wonder if one of them's I'm sorry, go ahead, Jimmy. We cut over.
There's been expanded universe explanations that I believe are no longer deemed canon. I think maybe some of this stuff might be fodder for the James Mangold Dawn of the Jedi film. So I don't know if there's any real canon explanation right now for the birth of the Republic. As a matter of fact, I don't think that exists at all.
I noticed that someone in chat mentioned, I also thought it was Coruscant, Alderaan, Corellia, and I wasn't sure who else, but there you got 3 human planets. If one of them is the Athorian planet, then the elephant people could be the 5th. That maybe this is what we're seeing here. And
Swank just pulled up
since the beginning.
Swank's got the Wikipedia core worlds entry. Does it identify all the planets from the core world? Yes, Corellia definitely one of them. Kuwat.
See, we got Coruscant, Kuwat, Corellia, Jakku. And so there's so core looks to be Corellia, Kuwat, Coruscant, Ord Mantell. What is that? Ilihar.
Wait, where are you seeing
there?
all that? I only see.
Oh, sorry. You're seeing a little bit. You're seeing a smarter version here, or a smaller version.
Yeah, you're going out into the inner rim there with Ord Mantell and on.
All right. You're right. You're right. That's inner rim. So
it's not a very detailed map.
Hosnian Prime. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Well, there's Wikipedia guys, but Hosnian Prime, Corellia, Kuwat, Coruscant. I'm seeing here as part of the core. But
again, this could be post Empire too. This actual map. It could be post Empire, where there is no Alderaan. There's an asteroid belt there now. Jason, don't laugh. It's too soon.
Too soon.
I'm starting to wonder if there's any of those elephant people left outside of the barrier. Are they one of the planets that got destroyed? I've never seen them in the Senate, obviously.
Oh, the elephant people.
Do they even have a name?
Not yet. No, we've not been treated to the species, the exact species that Neil's people come from. But yeah. I mean, to me, it's Max Rebo or bust. And,
I think he was conceived to be a Max Rebo, and then people started pointing to maquettes and puppets and views that we never saw in the original in the film. So yeah, and then I think they kind of had to walk away from the Max Rebo.
Yeah, he's definitely a cousin of the Max Rebo species, I would say. I think that there's got to be some relation, right? But I mean, they are vastly different looking. Really, if you put them side by side and look at the two of them.
Oh, sure. Yeah, look at mom there. She doesn't look like Max Rebo.
Yeah, back to a point from a previous after show that about the accent. I think it's very on purpose that none of those alien-looking people on At Attin have an accent. This has been a, like, you could say, gentrified culture.
Oh.
They have not had contact with their original culture for thousands of years. They don't even have concept of what great-great-great-grandma's accent used to be like.
That's a great point. That's a great point.
How crazy was Neil's reaction when they arrive at Port Borga?
To the aliens,
and he goes, aliens, look, aliens. It's like, what? Wait a second, dude. Have you looked in the mirror recently?
The little green, the blue kid. Yeah. The blue kid's the one who went, look, aliens. And I was like, they've never seen anything other than the 5 or 6 species on their planet.
Yeah.
Well, what have we seen on their planet? We saw the little Furby, the little green Furby. We saw a Rhodium.
That's the Furby, the only one not in the diagrams. That's what kind of throws off my concept. A little bit worried because there's no Furbies in any of those murals.
Yes, we have seen that.
But, we got to find a picture of the mural. Everyone should go look at that floating mural. I'd like to find out who drew it because I have a feeling.
I'll pull it up and we'll see if we can get that on the weekly show here. We'll look at the mural because my curiosity is piqued, and that's in Fern's house, right? Fern's mom's house.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, in Fern's house. Anyways, I feel like after Barf, I'm like taking up enough time myself. I spent some time in Boston myself. I might go visit those fellas.
Yeah.
Brian,
do it. We want full report.
You're always welcome to call, man. That was for a first-time caller. That's a great call. Appreciate it. Some really good thoughts.
Thanks, fellas. No, I got to say that after the bit of the scrum we all went through with the Acolyte, anyone that's left is all good people. Because that was some serious times. The conversations on Facebook were heated, to say the least.
Yes, they were. Yes, they were.
Anyway, so it was always a great show, man. My wife and I appreciate you guys so much. We listen every week. Been doing it for years.
Oh, thank you.
Been actually an integral part. Yeah.
Thank you both.
Thanks a lot, fellas.
All right. Take care.
All righty.
Appreciate it. All righty. Let's see. We've got, how about another first-time caller here? We got Cole calling in from Connecticut. Hey, Cole.
Hey, all. How's it going?
Doing well. Doing
well.
Hey,
all. How's it going?
Doing well.
Great. I'm just gonna jump right in. Jod, loving the show. Jod, clearly a Force user, but here's something I think you both will appreciate. I don't think he's a Padawan. I don't think he's some type of Sith. I think he's a broom boy. Because the galaxy is full of broom boys. As much as I hate Rian Johnson's take on Star Wars, we can't deny the fact that there are clearly Force users across the galaxy that were overlooked by the Jedi, that were overlooked in general. So he's a broom boy. He's a broom boy turned pirate.
Well, I mean, I see where you're coming from. I do see where you're coming from, but I got to say this is the events of this show are happening several years before the events of The Last Jedi. And you'd think there'd be consistency, right? But there's that one line from Snoke in The Force Awakens when he basically references the title of the film, The Force Awakens, when he says, there's been an awakening. Have you felt it? And I think what he means by that is that the Force is sort of blowing up a little bit and becoming more accessible to regular people like the broom boy. So I don't know if the Force is
I agree with you.
Well, good.
I agree.
That's the first time
that's
happened to me today where everyone's agreed.
But here's where I differ. I agree with you, but there is a difference between sensing a presence between Jesus Christ, Palpatine's granddaughter and a broom boy, because broom boy existed. There are broom boys across the galaxy. They have not been trained. They're not Palpatine's disciple. They're not Palpatine's blood. That's why I feel like a person like Jod exists out there, because we can't expect a bunch of Keller and Becks to have just escaped a bunch of Force-using Padawans from the Jedi Temple. This is why I believe that he is so far separated from Coruscant. He is just a Force user that was born into it, that's used it to his benefit in his pirate trade.
A
That
Force
adds up.
user
I
that
mean,
was
so far.
not identified. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that adds up so far.
It's possible, because I've not necessarily seen him pull anything off Force-wise that would make me think that he needed any exceptional deep training.
Right. He wasn't strong enough in the
That's
Force
my
to actually
point.
set off any alarms, but yet he still can tap into the Force to do mundane things. I mean, we have seen him pilot the ship.
Exactly. He's got his little bells and whistles.
When they were escaping the moon, he did pull off some interesting piloting by flying close enough to the surface to gather up all of that dirt and obscure the vision of the X-wing pilots. So they pulled off. I mean, that's you know, that's a really great move, and maybe the Force was sort of guiding him through that. But it's not like that's something a normal pilot couldn't pull off himself. And we just need to see more from Jude other than his abilities to, I mean, really, he's only shown us telekinesis at this point, the ability to move objects with his mind. He hasn't done anything else really to indicate he has any other Force abilities. So maybe he just knows a few tricks. It's the best I can. I do like the fact that the kids addressed the different ways someone could scam.
Yes.
You think that because that's a direct tie into the Obi-Wan series when you had Kh'ymm Nanjiani using magnets and things to scam people. So the kids are at least aware of that, and they put it there on the table. So it's now something that's part of the story and being discounted.
You know, the other thing that I like that they just put right out there, which is, well, if you have these abilities, if you're a Jedi, why did you wait for us before you escaped? You could have escaped at any time. He does have a reasonably good answer for that, which is he was waiting for an opportunity where he'd have a ship, because without a ship, why the hell would he escape? He's not going anywhere. He just get captured again. And they might even find out that he has these abilities, which who knows if that would put him in any kind of additional danger.
The only thing is, though,
Exactly.
Fern noted how easy it was for them to get away from the pirate port. She says that was too easy.
Yep.
So I think something might be up. It's hard to say. She wouldn't have said that if there was no reason for her. Well, that was too easy. There has to be something's going on here.
Yeah. The other thing that's interesting along those same lines is when you hear the over the loudspeaker there at what's the name of the place again? The
Borga.
They're talking about Captain Silvo escaping. They don't say anything about the children being escaped. They're not saying, you know, and 4 accomplices or 4 kids or anything like that. They're just saying that Captain Silvo has escaped. So is it theatrics? Is that what they're doing? Is this all part of a long play between Brutus and Silvo to get to the goal?
Brutus puts a price on their heads. He says about Jude and the kids. He specifically mentions them. Calls them like scamp rats or something.
He calls them pups. Yeah, it says pups, and the pups. But again, it could be theatrics. I don't know.
I would vote against that. Yeah.
You know.
So who? Okay, if it's not Brutus that is aiding and abetting Jude, who else could it be? Maybe it's Urkel.
The Force. I would say the Force.
Urkel.
I'd say maybe she said that she wasn't fully convinced. Or Vane. Yeah, Vane. I mean, if really Urkel or Vane.
it can't be the Force, because it's if we're playing off the idea that Fern is being pretty perceptive by saying that the escape was too easy, that means that they let them escape. So who's the they that let them escape? It's not Brutus, because he put the price on their head. So is it somebody working for Brutus? Who is aiding in the escape of Jod? If it was too easy.
Well, Jason, Jimmy, you have to, I implore you both to think about this. What we're going to see in a show like this, and this is my honest, just perception, take it for what it is. I firmly believe, given that Filoni is part of this team, that they're going to take typical tropes from Rebels and Clone Wars that were shown on that show that worked well for really, well entrenched fans like us, that worked really well for us and resonated with us. I think they're going to repurpose it in this show.
Like
with
what?
The dynamic between Jod and the children.
Right, but
when it comes to Hondo and how his dynamic was with not just Ezra, but also with Ahsoka, and then Maul with Ezra, and those dynamics where, Jod clearly is not going into this to just be all for the kids. He's in it for something else. We know he's Captain Silvo. We know he's Captain Jack. We know he's Jod Nanawe. We also know, based on Google searches, that we're going to see a wife in the future in some semblance. If you do a Google search, a woman actress is casted as his wife. So we're going to see some type of flashback.
Speculation.
Something
could be his mom. Yeah. She could be his mom too. Maybe not necessarily his wife. I saw the rumor he's talking about.
Mrs. Nawood.
There is another Nawood. There is another Nawood.
There is another.
And so, but yeah, it appears to be a female actress, and but it could be a sister. It could be his mom. There's a number of different. It doesn't necessarily have to be his wife. Could be his wife. I wouldn't rule it out.
You're right. But what I'm trying to really get at is, like, we're going to see tropes that we saw that were successful from Rebels and Clone Wars on this show.
I don't think Rebels and Clone Wars. Here's what I'm going to say. Here's what I'm going to say, Cole. I don't think that Clone Wars and Rebels is having any influence on this show. I'll go further and say I don't think Filoni's had little to any influence on this show. I think this show, we know the show, the production of it, certainly the conception of it predates Filoni's rise in the company as the sort of the creative director. I don't see it. I'm not saying that it's not going to fall into some of those things, because that obviously that was there because it ended up in Clone Wars and it ended up in Rebels, but I don't think there's a Filoni influence on this show. I don't think that there's a Clone Wars or a Rebels influence on this show. I think this is Watts and Ford's show from the beginning to the end, really. I think Filoni and Favreau are just names that they put on the slate at the end. I don't think they had anything to do with it. Maybe Favreau vetted
then that leads me to my final question, gentlemen.
Yeah.
That leads me to my final question, gentlemen. How in the hell does this tie into the Mandoverse?
I don't think it does.
But they say it does. It's been billed as.
Oh, well, Vane. Yeah, Vane. Yeah.
Vane.
Yeah.
And the pirates. Yeah.
Right. Vane. Yes. I thought you were. Now, are you talking about how does it tie in terms of the overall story, the plot? Is it going to have a significant. Is it going to play a significant role in the overall Mandoverse? We're going to be talking about it in the big Filoni team-up movie, or will there be references to it in Grogu and Mando? I don't think so. I think it's its own thing.
I mean, they wouldn't have said it's part of the Mandoverse for no reason. So there's got to be something a part of it. It's just a matter of
it
how
might
much.
just be.
Really
it might just be that's the best place to slot the story. That's like the most convenient place in the timeline to put the story, I think.
Well,
and
that would be that would be a letdown. That would be a letdown.
Well, maybe. I mean, what? We haven't been let down by Star Wars before. I'm not. I think
I
a
know,
lot
I
of
know.
people are looking for something that stands on its own, that doesn't get crushed by the weight of Star Wars history, and that anybody can plug into and watch with the most rudimentary knowledge of Star Wars and without any worry about how this is going to impact the Mandalorian era of the timeline. I just think people are just along for the ride more than those big picture considerations. And like Jason said, I do think this is Watson Ford all the way. What do you love?
This show is fantastic. Don't get me wrong. I'm glued in. This has brought about a new spirit in Star Wars we haven't seen in a while. As much as I loved Andor, I was iffy on Ahsoka. Acolyte, I think we can all agree on. Kenobi, I think, was guilty of, or a victim of COVID.
Right. Here's the problem, though. Here's the problem, Cole. Here's the problem that I think. I don't think very many people are watching this show.
That's true.
I think that so this whole, like, I agree with you. I think that for the people that are watching it, that this is sort of rejuvenating and cleansing the palate, as we all want to say, after some of the other stuff. But I don't think enough people are watching it for it to have a major impact on fandom at large, I would say. All right, let's here's some super chats here.
You took his breath away with that,
Steve Perkins says, mistake dropping episodes at 9 p.m. on school nights. First Star Wars show that my kids really like, but the wife's not happy with everyone being up until 10. Steve, you know what? I'm not a school kid. I don't like it. I don't like it 9 Eastern. I wish these things could drop just a couple hours earlier. But I will say this. As a kid, I loved the one night a week when I was able to stay up a little bit later to watch shows like The Dukes of Hazzard or Knight Rider, things like that. There was always that one night a week. Give your kids, tell your wife, give them that one night a week that as long as they brush their teeth, do their homework, and have everything ready to, in their pajamas, they can stay up a little bit later and watch the Star Wars show.
Yeah, and it depends on where you live. If you're in L.A., the show is dropping at 6 p.m. So it's a lot better than when they were dropping the shows at 3 a.m. Believe me, it's a lot better than that, which I thought was dumb for them to like.
What was with
just
that?
Really well, they were thinking about an international audience, which is really stupid to do because the vast majority of Star Wars fans are in America. And listen, I know we have people listening from all over the world to this show because you're a Star Wars fan and we want you to listen, but you can't deny that the vast majority of fandom comes from the good old USA. It just does. There's no competition with any other country. So you have to focus on the States first and foremost, and then let everyone else pick up on it, as opposed to leaving the States in the dust and releasing it to be on some sort of international clock and dropping shows at 3 a.m. I mean, that's just stupid.
Yeah,
stupid.
Didn't make
I'm
any
glad they
sense to
saw
me.
the error in their ways because it was poor management, poor planning, bad. So I think they're doing the right thing by making it more of an appointment television sort of thing, not something that, we'll watch just whenever.
Yeah.
And I'm glad your kids, and I'm glad your kids are on board. Believe me.
Yeah. But they'll have memories. They'll say, I remember Mom and Dad used to let us stay up a little bit late when the Star Wars show would come on.
Yes.
They'll always remember that. Here's Tanya. Tanya says, cheers, everyone. Thank you, Tanya. Appreciate it. Tanya is always here and always in the chat.
Love Tanya.
Finally, we got Matt. Matt says, can't watch the after show live tonight, but will watch Friday night with a glass. I'm enjoying the Skeleton Crew music, getting Indiana Jones vibes. RFR #1. Happy holidays, everyone. Thanks, Matt. I haven't really thought about this through the Indiana Jones frame. I mean, I guess I don't know. I'm curious what Matt's seeing that's of Indy.
There was only one part in this week's episode where I found myself focusing on the soundtrack music. And that is when Jude was talking to KB when they were having their one-on-one by themselves.
Yeah.
On the ship, right in the middle of the episode. And the music sounded like the music you hear in line when you're waiting to get on board the Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disney. It had that sort of nautical vibe to it, that
like a shanty.
Pirates. No, not a shanty. It was just more of an atmospheric sort of thing. It's like the music you hear in line at the Pirates of the Caribbean, and just the instrumentation was similar to that, and the low key vibe of it. Yeah, if you go back and listen to that music, you might hear what I'm hearing, without me being able to describe it, down to the instrument or anything. It's more of a feeling I got when I was hearing it. Very Pirates of the Caribbean. And that makes sense.
Turtle War says, almost forgot to put in my habitual super chat. How dare you?
Dude, what
Turtle
a great
Wars.
Guy he is.
Thank you
Chris
so much.
Hagen. What a great guy he is. Super supporter of RFR.
All right, our last call of the night here. We got a stalwart with us. We got Eric from Phoenix. Hello, Eric. You're on with Rebel Force Radio. Thanks for waiting, bud.
Hey, guys. Thanks for taking my call.
Sure thing.
Hey, Eric.
Yeah. Hey, I've got two things for you, and I was just going to answer something real quick that wasn't part of the two things. You guys, somebody mentioned who's helping Jude. I think it's the Ishi Tib that's voiced by Alfred Molina that confronted him when he was trying to take Smee away. My guess is that's probably who's helping Jude, just based on the events and kind of that, why else have that interaction. So just I heard.
Well, it appeared he was blowing the whistle on him. How did you? It appeared like he was turning him in. He was being a whistleblower. How do you?
He was going to. He said he was going to, and then they stopped, and then they cut the scene. So my guess is they had a scene where Jude said, "Hey, here's where I'm going. Here's what I'm going to get, and I'll pay you back if you help me get away." I don't know.
It might be onto something there. That's really good. That's
always
good
the Ishi
analysis.
Tib.
Because there was an unfortunate jump to him being. Jude was made aware that the authorities were closing in on him, and then it cuts away. And the next time we see him, he's on board that shuttle, and he's flying toward the ship, and he's under fire. That's really interesting, Eric. You're picking up on a good thing, because what do we make of that missing space? Something must have happened there. And maybe a deal was struck between Jude and it seems like a very random alien character. But you're right. They did bring in a Hollywood heavyweight in Alfred Molina to voice him. So obviously Alfred Molina, he appeared in the last Spider-Man film, which John Watts directed. And that's probably the genesis of his voice appearance here in Skeleton Crew.
He's also in Raiders of the Lost Ark.
Oh, that's right. He's that guy, he's like, he's going like this. And and he goes turn around. And he's got all the spiders on his back. And he takes the idol and then ends up with the spikes in his skull. And what was he had a name. I forget his name in it, but that's irrelevant.
Yeah. So the missing, the gap. I'm glad that Eric brought this up, because there is that gap. We don't know how he got out of that jam with the Ishi Tib. And that might have
his
been
name
the
is
deal that was struck.
Benjar Pranik is the name of the Ishi Tib.
Okay.
Benjar Pranik. So, if somebody has maybe a bun in the oven and kick around the name Benjar, you could have a little Benjar running around your house. You'd say that's your wife. Yeah, I think we should name him Benjar. Oh, I love that name. Where'd you get that name? Well, I don't. It came to me in a dream. Oh, and then like 3 years later, she finds out you named your kid after a Star Wars Ishi Tib. Oh, don't tell her that I recommended the name.
I like that there's a line where Nawood says, "There's a good Tib." There's a good tib. Yeah, be a good tib.
That's funny. You know what? That went past me. I didn't know that was a line. Be a good tib.
Yeah, you can't tell a soul you saw me. Be a good tib.
I'll tell you, Eric from Phoenix is a good tib. He came out to visit us here, and we went to the Galloping Ghost and had a good old time, didn't we, Eric?
Yes, we did. It was a great time. A lot of people came out, got to meet a bunch of people, and it was an absolute blast. So if you're ever near the Galloping Ghost, you got to check it out. It was a great time.
Well, we were certainly happy to have you out here. You're a great supporter of RFR, Eric. You have been for years now. You and your wife, Andrea, we love you. So thanks for calling in this week. Do you have anything else you wanted to say about Skeleton Crew before we let you go?
Super quick. The mural, that got brought up a bunch tonight, which I love because the show is focused on those murals a bunch of times. Each one of the adult aliens or characters has been represented in the mural. The dark-skinned man, light-skinned woman, elephant person, a saurian. Then there is a humanoid light-skinned person sitting down with his back turned to what you're looking at. And if you take a close look at that guy, it's odd that his back is turned. We don't see his face. To me, he looks a lot like the animated Anakin from Clone Wars. And you can see the utility belt on his belt. I'm not saying it's Anakin, but I thought that was interesting that character.
What if it's Jude? What if it's Jude Nawood?
It could be him. Yeah, it could be. So that was just one little bit on the mural.
So maybe it's some sort of prophecy. That mural is some sort of prophecy that once all of these are in alignment or come together, that something major is about to happen.
Whoa.
The prophecy that misread could have been.
Made such a. It's just they showed it so many times and it features prominently on that one set.
How did I miss it?
Seems like there's something to it.
I didn't do the freeze frame or anything at that sequence either. I don't know why.
No, to me it felt like a very throwaway. Yeah.
Go back and watch the first episode when Fern comes home. She sits in the exact same spot, stands right in front of that mural, and you get a really good look at all the characters. So that's just a little tidbit since it got brought up. I had in my notes, but I have a theory on the treasure.
Okay.
So I think there are two treasures. Treasure number one, we've already seen in the trailer, and that's a traditional pirate treasure. We see that cave right out of Goonies with all the pirate treasure.
Right.
And there's this huge stone skull set in the wall. That is a weak-way skull. I'm not saying it's Hondo Anaka, but there is a weak-way skull. If you freeze frame it and look at it, it's a weak-way. And there's a gold chair where the mouth would be in this huge skull. I believe there is a legit pirate treasure, just like in Goonies, and I think it's hidden on At Attin. I think the ship that the kids escaped on was the One-Eyed Willie character from this series' ship. That is the reason they were able to escape the planet, not get shot down by the barrier, and also why they didn't get shot down when they landed at the base in the asteroids, because they call out, how come they didn't get shot down by the cannons?
Yeah.
I think it's because it's the One-Eyed Willie ship, whoever's treasure that is, that we see in the treasure that's hidden in At Attin. And that's what all the pirates want. They want that treasure. The planet's hidden. The planet was hidden. The pirates put up that protection around the planet. At some point in time, the Republic took it over, killed the pirates, marooned them, whatever, took the planet over to use as their FDIC or Federal Reserve or banking system, because everybody on that planet has a job related to accounting or money or currency. And the Republic set this up as like a redundancy, a safety, to hide it away if something ever happened with the Republic, for investments, the money. There's something going on there with all the money. And through the generations, everybody continues to work the great work as the money for the Republic. However, whoever the supervisor is, I believe, has gone corrupt. and is doing it now for their own gain. And they know what's going on outside the planet, but nobody else does. But it was originally set up for the Republic. They stole the planet basically to use the fact it's hidden and already had, protection around it. So that's my theory. Very long-winded, but that's my theory.
Or it could be that the supervisor is just a figurehead and the planet is still being run by pirates. You just never see them. They can be going in and out at will. They're running the planet, so they can come and go as they please. Perhaps. But nobody knows this.
It strips away the secret of the planet, though.
Yes, it does. You're right. Because, dead men tell no tales. So, it would eventually get out. If there was regular in and outs, yes, it wouldn't keep it secret for very long. That's a good point. Good point. All right, we'll go with Eric's theory. Eric, thanks a lot, buddy. Appreciate the call. Appreciate all of the callers. We didn't get to everybody this week, but you know what? That's what next week is for. We'll get to more calls. But it's always great to have you all here. Thanks, everybody, for hanging out. Another episode of Skeleton Crew and another Rebel Force Radio Skeleton Crew after show in the can. The mysteries still unfold. Where are they going to end up next week? Did get a notice from, I don't know, this is from Poland Kopower. That's the handle, but apparently this is a Blake update. Blake had a school event, but he thinks the owl is sending them into a trap. So we still got Blake's take this week. He thinks the owl is sending them into a trap. See, I want to think that Kh'ymm is good. Wouldn't be sending the kids into a trap, but they are there with Jod. She wants to get Jod. Travis Brooks says, great breakdown of the show. Loving it so far. Thanks, guys. May the force be with you. Very generous, Travis. Thank you very, very much. Thanks to all the super chats. Thanks to everybody hanging out. Thanks to all of the callers. And especially thanks to this guy, Tyler Page. Tyler, screening all of our calls and listening to the show, of course, is the official RFR program observer here. Anything that we left off or that we didn't get to that caught your eye this week?
I know Jimmy's very critical of the music. I liked when they were escaping the pirate planet. There's like a little, there's some theremin maybe, which is I'm not a huge fan of.
There was the theremin? That was bizarre, man.
You guys, this blows my mind because everyone knows my son Michael is a musician and he has not watched Skeleton Crew yet. But I was sitting in a room watching it last night and he must have rolled by because he stopped me hours later and said, "Is that a theremin I heard coming out of the basement?" I was like, I don't know. I don't recall hearing any theremin. And the crazy thing is it was a theremin. There actually was a theremin. A theremin is a weird old instrument where you manipulate magnetic fields to create high-pitched sounds. It's the Beach Boys used it. Led Zeppelin used it. But it's a very bizarre instrument that was used in a lot of horror films in the 50s and 60s. That kind of gave you that. Yeah. Swank's got it. And so Michael tells me, he goes, "Well, I know I heard a theremin. You know why?" I said, "Why?" He goes, "I just got one." So he's hearing it coming from me. I'm sure very soon I'm going to be hearing it coming from him.
Wow.
So, so stay tuned. There will be theremin updates coming at you here on Rebel Force Radio. And also bleeding ear updates, which will be coming from me. So once Michael fires up that machine. But yes, there absolutely was a theremin heard in the show. And what part was it exactly where we heard it?
I think it was when they were leaving the they were trying to break the gas line. He was swinging it around. I could be right. But
well, I love the violence of that fuel line crashing back into the port. There was just something so satisfyingly violent about that moment that I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too. It did a lot of damage.
It did.
All
You
right,
got anything else, Tyler?
I really love that the scene, like the setting of that moon planet with the Tootsie Pop played doll. Just when you had that backdrop and they're just walking across the moon, I don't know. I thought it was beautiful.
Oh yeah, I like
don't
that
know.
too. Yeah, I like that too. I think we used that on thumbnail art there a few weeks ago. Yeah, it was a very cool image. It was in the trailer. Loved it. Yeah, it was so sparse, but that makes sense. You go to a planetarium, they don't want a bunch of light and everything. Those things tend to be out isolated, and that's what it looked like.
Yeah. Other than that, I think next week is going to be a bit slower, and I'm excited for that. I think so reset these kids' nervous system. So.
So Tyler's predicting a little slowdown next week with episode 4. Maybe we'll get a little background on Jude, something like that. Maybe a flashback. Maybe he'll tell a story about where he came from. I mean, he did promise the kids that he would come clean and tell them, and all we got out of him was he's like them. He's lost, so he's not amongst his own kind. Could his kind be Jedi? Well, I don't know. All right. Thanks, Tyler. We'll catch up with you next week, buddy. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
All right, still lots to talk about with this series. We're not even halfway through, so looking forward to more. But for this episode, we've got final thoughts. Jimmy Mack?
I do have a few final observations on this third episode of Skeleton Crew. Most notably, the scenes shot at Port Borga I thought were very effective. It appeared that pirate port was huge, heavily crowded and busy. And these are, some criticisms we've had of recent Star Wars television shows where the environments are supposed to be big, but they feel really small. I'm looking at Navarro, the planet Navarro from season 3 of The Mandalorian. I'm looking at certain scenes from Ahsoka. It just feels like very small. It lacks the epic scale that Star Wars requires. Port Borga definitely felt like a big, bustling spaceport. And I was convinced, earlier this summer, we talked to filmmaker James Cox on the show. James directed Wonderland, and he's got a great new book out called Grand Theft AI. And he was telling us that the ability to move background characters, extras, to create a sense of movement and traffic and energy in a scene, there's a true art to that. And I feel that in some of these Star Wars shows, that art was kind of lost. Here in Skeleton Crew, we see it. It really does appear Port Borga is a big, huge, bustling spaceport. And I appreciate that attention to detail from the filmmakers. I noticed there was no Teak on the shuttle back to the Onyx Cinder. Where was Teak? I demand more Teak. Come on, join me. More Teak, more Teak, more Teak. Maybe before the season is over, we'll see Teak once again. I thought it was very abrupt the way the kids were able to get Jude to agree to retrieve SM-33 when they were already on the ship and all they had to do was blast out of there. Jude instantly put himself into a dangerous situation to retrieve the kid's droid. The droid is what gives the kids all the clout when it comes to negotiating with Jude later in the episode. So I wonder if Jude was sort of feeling bad about making that decision to go save the droid. He really wishes he didn't do it. He had strong feelings that he made the wrong move because let's face it, he could have taken over that ship instantly. The kid said, no, you work for us. What would stop Jude from pushing them aside, saying, no, you work for me? One thing, SM-33. And Jude put his ass on the line to go rescue the droid for the kids. I don't know. It seemed a little abrupt to me. It seemed like there was something missing from the story there. but I don't mean to criticize the show. I think the dominoes, as far as the storytelling go, fall in a really solid direction. I do wonder why when Jude initially saw the Onyx Cinder, he saw their ship and he goes, no, not that. It almost seemed like he was familiar with that ship, which seems very hard to believe because the ship was formerly buried underground on the planet At Attin, a planet nobody knows how to get to. So I don't see how Jude would have any familiarity with that. Maybe he just recognized the ship's design and felt like it's a bad ship. I don't know. An observation I made, one of Brutus's goons is named Beef. Beef is now canon in Star Wars. Beef. And that's one of his goons. He was the guy sort of searching the spaceport there at the beginning of this episode. And I wonder if he's named after the Netflix show Beef, which was directed by Skeleton Crew Episode 5 director Jake Schreier. Could be. And I did see Beef, and I think it's a good show. It's about road rage and all of these, in this insane situation that emerges from a road rage incident in a shopping center parking lot. It's a great show. And Jake Schreier will be directing episode 5 of this series. So I look forward to that. And that's pretty much the unused portion of my notes here. I really do like this show. It's a really well put together show. And I find that in our analysis of it, it's a much smoother process than with a show like The Acolyte or Ahsoka, which really kept us guessing and scratching our head. Even after the season finale comes and goes, we shouldn't be left with so many questions about a show. It feels like this show is giving us everything right up front. They're not holding anything back for future seasons that will never happen. We're getting a fully fleshed out story with everything thrown into it from the creatives working on the show. So that I greatly appreciate. Hondo Onaka, not in this episode.
All right, that'll do it for us. We'll see you next week for more Rebel Force Radio Skeleton Crew After Show Wednesday night, 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Time. We'll also be back at you later this week with the Rebel Force Radio Weekly Podcast. So 2 episodes this week. So we'll see you next time for Rebel Force Radio and Tyler Page. I'm Jason.
I'm Jimmy Mack.
And remember,
the Force will be with you, always.